on NCUA's proposed 5,300 call report changes. Your presenters for today are Karen Sorensen, Jim Bilger, Danielle O'Connor, and Charlie Rogers, and Keegan Daniel. We expect this class to last about 60 minutes. If you joined us today, all phones are placed on mute to eliminate background noise and interruptions. To facilitate answering questions you have during the broadcast, we use the chat feature. You can find the chat feature by hovering over the bottom of the presentation screen. You should then see the toolbar with a series of icons. Click the one that says chat, then select to presenter and type your question. Today, we're going to have more of an open forum. If you have a question, please type your question. The chat feature will unmute you so that you can speak to the group and join the conversation. Questions may be sent at any time. We'll be stopping throughout the presentation to answer these questions. We appreciate your attendance today. With that, we'll turn it over to the group to get started. Enjoy the presentation.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon on what is a very exciting topic, right? What other exciting topic could get five of us in a room together, right? To start talking about such fun stuff like the call report. So we're excited today to begin the conversation, to talk with everybody on some of the proposed changes associated with the call report. I think that we'll jump right in and talk about the kitchen page. I think is a good place to start, Karen, where we talk about what we're doing there on the kitchen page. And for those of you who don't know, on the CU Answers webpage, under the Resources tab at the top of the screen, the In the Kitchen option right over on the left-hand side is where you're going to find the majority of what we're talking about here at the beginning. You'll see everything currently in the kitchen that we're cooking up, and then you'll see the 5,300 call report tools option. So tell me a little bit, Karen, what do we got out here in the kitchen page, and what are we proposing, and where did we get some of the data elements that we've put out here?
Well, it was about a month ago when we found out about these proposed changes by the NCUA, so immediately went in there and did some analysis to see what the impact would be to you as our credit unions and to us as providing this tool for you. If you go down a little bit, you can see I just went and kind of highlighted some of the main changes that I saw. It's overall very much simplified. A lot of the schedules that maybe were multiple pages are now one page. So I think as far as that goal they have in mind, they did accomplish that, but we're really looking for your feedback to see what you think of their proposed changes. Maybe it could be even simplified more. So just to kind of go through some of the highlight of the changes, they have a new page numbering scheme, which isn't really numbers anymore. It's letters with other letters. I don't know, we'll go through it. It's going to be confusing, we think. They have a CECL sections added, and that's for any credit unions that have adopted the CECL early. I don't know that that applies to any of our credit unions at this point.
It's being recommended not to.
Yeah, but those sections are in gray and they're optional. The cash assets section, which is page 1, now includes time deposits, and we're going to go through each page by page so we can kind of look at that. The investment section is probably the most revamped of any section, where they're asking for different ways of categorizing the investments. They're no longer requiring interest rate information for shares and loans. The delinquency loan range of 60 to 179 days has been separated out to 60 to 89 and 90 to 179. So now there's 5 ranges as opposed to 4, I think. Yeah. The delinquent loan section and charge-off sections are very much streamlined. The miscellaneous information page is removed. I think the one account code number of members was moved to the profile. Lending.
Did you see much move to the profile, or was that about the only thing?
I think there was one other field. I'll have to look. Very little. And most of it just got eliminated. That was on that miscellaneous page.
Okay.
Lending-related data in the old Schedule A was simplified. Still basically the same sections of indirect lending, participation loans, real estate loans. The derivative sections, that's now half a page rather than 5 pages. And there's a risk-based schedule added at the end. I don't know that we'll go through that in very much detail because they haven't adopted that rule yet, so we don't even know if these sections are going to be applicable. And then they did improve the instructions. Interesting, they even have a reason code for each account code now. So if you go to each section, you will see what the reason is that they're asking for the information. They've got reason 1 is level and trend analysis. Reason 2 is reporting to other governmental agencies. Reason 3, share insurance calculation. Reason 4, net worth or risk-based net worth calculations. 5, disclosure required by generally accepted accounting principles. Or 6, risk-based capital calculation. So if you're ever wondering why they're asking for something, they're supposedly telling you now. So we can move on down. Another main reason we're having this webinar too is that the NCUA does have a comment period that's going on right now through April 2nd, where if you have any comments about their proposed changes, they want to hear about it. And I have a direct link on here, if you go a little bit lower, where you can go to place your comments directly with the NCUA. I'm happy to also solicit some comments if you have any. I'm going to go up a little more. I don't know if we want to, I mean, you can read through all these, but basically, are there any that they're planning to get rid of that should still be there? Should they get rid of more account codes? They're just asking specific questions and they want credit union feedback. So now's the time to speak up and say what you like or don't like, or is something not in the appropriate place, that kind of thing. So a couple of the comments that we came up with as a team here was the fact that the timing is not the greatest, being March of 2019. Now, whether that's actually going to happen or not, we don't know. But with year end and tax time, and that's probably not the best timing for you all as credit unions. And then I think we also talked about needing more time for that first period when these changes go in. It's normally like 4 weeks, maybe giving 6 to 8 weeks to complete that particular call report.
Have we done any analytics yet on what it's going to do to the FPR ratios, the ratios?
Yeah, a couple of them are going to be messed up because they're getting rid of some of the account codes, but they haven't really posted anything to do with that yet, so they might be replaced by other account codes. We just don't know that yet.
Or those FPR ratios are no longer going to be
valid.
And there's a number of those out there that are just meaningless, so I'm wondering if they're going to retire some of those as well.
Right, and actually if you go down a little further, Keegan, that's one of the things that the AMIT will probably do last is analyze those ratios and see how they're changing those calculations, because they haven't posted it yet, so we don't know. But then what we've been doing on our end, other than all of us kind of taking a look, analyzing, seeing what the impact is, we're just preparing. The main tasks on our end are going to be reviewing our CU-based reports and dashboards to see if there's anything else we can provide to help you get the information for your call report. We maintain a template of account codes that has to match what the NCUA is, and with all the changes they're proposing, that's going to take quite some time to update. So we're going to get a test environment set up for that and make sure we can thoroughly test everything and make sure all the account codes that need to be there are there and everything flows correctly in the call report to match the NCUA. And then the reports and dashboards, another thing we may look at is auto-pop routines. I don't see anything major changing, but possibly in the investments arena, we may be able to work with some different auto-pops that we've not offered before. And then obviously our documentation on our end and reviewing NCUA edits and that type of thing. So we basically just want you to know we're on top of things. We're looking at what we can do to help you with the call report and looking for your comments.
So one of the biggest concepts there that Karen mentioned that I hope struck a chord with everybody that's joining us today is we want to help you and facilitate the comments to go to the NCUA. So if you would like us to help you write some comments, or if you have some ideas that you'd like us to add to some of the comments that we may provide to the NCUA, let us know. You can always email callreport@cuanswers.com, and that will go to our group. We will review the information, and then we will help you along the way. So we want to, if you're not a writer or somebody who's used to writing comments or in this particular game, we want to help you out. I know we have a very short window to get to April 2nd. So if you are interested in having us move in that direction, please send us your comments within the next week or so. I think that would help everybody out. to help us have enough time to get those opportunities resolved, written, agreed upon by the folks internally as well as yourself, so that we can move in that direction. You are absolutely capable of writing your own comments as well, as Karen had alluded to, but if you want that help, we're happy to help move in that direction. We think that there's a huge opportunity for us to identify how we can, as a credit union community, have an impact on everybody else in our network.
Or even if you didn't hear something come out of Karen or any of our mouths today to say, you didn't mention, and I felt this was a significant change. It's your opportunity to at least reach out to Karen and Keegan and say, listen, I didn't hear that. Did you guys know this is, I think, a bit more significant than you might have originally anticipated. The more eyes that are on this, even from our perspective, I think the better. The one comment that Karen brought to light, and if you do nothing but this, please, that first reporting period, double the amount of time it's going to take for me to get my report done would be a great comment. Because if you think about it, all those auto pop routines are going to have to be rebuilt. You're learning a new set of reports. And we can't give you 2 months prior to. Please understand, we can't put the software in because we can't until it's due. That's just the way that the 5300 software always has gone in as well, because the changes have to go into place after the reg and the requirements change. So again, if there's one comment that every one of the 50 or better people who are on this, that would be one that I would write down and say, please consider extending that first reporting period length for preparation from 3 to 6 weeks. Or Karen, what's the normal amount of time?
I think it's normally about 4 weeks.
4 weeks. Yeah.
Yep.
4 to 8.
And really, technically, you're only getting maybe 3, depending on how you finish up your end of month.
Yeah.
Yeah, Danny needs it too. How many call reports are you doing right now?
Right now, I do 26.
26 call reports. So if Danny's doing it, she needs you to.
She's gonna write that letter like 10 times. And the automation routines, you may not need to change that much. It's just gonna involve review. I'm
Right.
gonna need to take a look at them and see if they still meet the requirements. And I know the NCUA changed the loan information 2 quarters ago, and that looks like it actually pretty much stays the same from what they did. So those automation routines should be okay, but if you have other automation routines in place, they'll need to be reviewed.
So we did have a question come in as we're chatting here a little bit. Is there a mock-up of what this will actually look like? The 87-page list of account code changes is a nightmare to visualize as a finished report. Karen, any comments there from your perspective?
We actually have the proposed call report. I'm thinking that's what you're asking. That's the next thing we're planning on going through section by section to talk about what they are proposing, and each of us can kind of highlight if we notice certain things on specific pages that we notice change. We'll kind of go through that now, and we can, I guess, maybe stop at the end of each section and see if people have comments.
And this is available on the NCUA website.
And this is available on the NCUA website. In fact, they have a dedicated web page for call report modernization.
I'll go over there.
Yeah, I think you can set that up. You can go to their website directly to this page, and you can access the proposed. If you page down a little bit, they've got the Federal Register notice, the proposed call report form, proposed call report profile. They're making changes to also. So all this information is out here on the NCUA site.
And we have links from the kitchen page too, I believe.
Right.
So if you
Yeah.
wanted to go out to the kitchen page, take a look at some of these opportunities, we should have some links and URLs for you guys to access the information.
And the other thing is, and Karen you brought it up as well, just prior to, this is what is proposed. We're not going to start writing code on proposed, and this, we always have to say this, on proposed changes. On that link, you saw that there was a decision thing in the timeline. They haven't decided yet.
Right.
So we'll be doing research here, but nothing's going to a programmer or a specification writer until they come out with the final, because this is not the final.
Right. That's why it's important to look into it as much as you can now before it's too late. So let's go ahead and go through the call report. You can page down. I think the next page just kind of shows the schedule. Let's just go to there's a whatever chart that has how their new page numbering scheme is, which is interesting. They don't use numbers. So the first section is financial statements, and they are labeled FC, and then those are actually numbered, and then the rest of the sections are just alphanumeric. I don't really understand their logic, other than I know FC is obviously financial information, and then the IE is
Statement of
expense.
financial condition.
But the page numbers, as they've existed for many, many years, are gone. So we'll go ahead and go to the first, I'd say page, but I guess we gotta call it section now. Okay, so this is like your old page 1 of the call report. The main difference I noticed on here was that time deposits are now incorporated in as part of your cash assets.
Line 4.
Line 4, yeah. That was one big difference. And then they have various sections throughout the call report. The areas in blue are if you've early adopted CECL. My understanding is you would fill that out in lieu of the other matching section, but I'm not sure that applies to anybody, so we'll just kind of let that section go. The investments that were on page 1 had your maturity ranges and a lot more detail. Now you just have a summary of those investment totals, and you put the itemized detail in later in the call report. If you want to keep paging down, this is still part of other investments. Then the next section is loan held for sale. That's pretty much the same, and the change the NCUA made 2 quarters ago, where you pull in your loan totals here, but your loan itemized information is on a subsequent page. They kept that the same, so here you see your total. And then your other assets. One thing I can note too is that the new account codes they added with all the changes, you can see start with alphanumeric. Like in this case, under foreclosed and repossessed assets, it's the AS and then a number. That's kind of how you can identify the new account codes they've added. Now, foreclosed and repossessed assets did exist before, but they had different categories. So these are different than how they were before. And then the old account codes, in all instances, they stayed the same. I don't think they ever changed what they use an account code for. If anything, they just retire it and then replace it with something new. So some of these you will recognize account codes that were there before. So that is the asset section. If anyone has any questions about that, we can pause for a moment and then move on.
Danny, Charlie, Jim, any big impacts on your worlds out of curiosity, or anything you see from a operational perspective of completing the work?
No,
Mhm.
pretty clean.
Yeah.
Pretty clean? Happy with the changes?
Yeah, I think it narrowed it down.
Changing from the maturity date ranges to maybe just a total?
Total numbers in there.
Makes it easier to collect the data.
Get the information.
Yeah.
Sure. That's probably the biggest thing that I see in this particular segment, where we move in that direction.
Mhm.
But they do ask for
They do.
further down the line.
Yeah, I think the thing is though, they're summarizing first, and then they're
Then
coming in
they're going
and
into detail afterwards.
kind of like the taxes, you summarize it and then you go into schedules.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those easier things to see from, in my perspective.
Cool.
Okay, then the liabilities section pretty much stayed the same.
Mhm.
And then one big thing to note on the shares, they no longer are asking you for the dividend rate, but otherwise that section pretty much stayed the same. And then additional shares, they're no longer asking for government depositors, employee benefit member shares. There was a few things they eliminated in that area, but that section's pretty much the same. And same with.
So a question just came in, no more investment is broken down by maturity. Is that correct? I believe that's what we were just talking about, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a subsequent page when we get to it that does
Further
have a
schedule.
breakdown. Yeah, we'll get to that.
So
but yeah,
initially, no, but later
further
on.
down
we
the
do.
line, yeah.
Once again, it's a summary up front of the assets and liabilities, and then you have further scheduling in the back.
Sure.
Right.
That's all.
And then the NCUA insured savings, that is condensed, and now they're basically just asking for totals. You've got your member, non-member, and then your uninsured and your insured total. So I think there was a breakdown with IRAs and POs and that type of thing before.
Yeah.
And right. And then the statement of income and expense is pretty much the same too. Maybe we'll just pause after that one. Page down, except they've separated it into 2 pages as opposed to just one. Used to all be on page 5. And then they've got the optional CECL sections here too. So we can pause now and see if there's any questions about that. The financial information is pretty much unchanged. Just streamlined a few things here and there. The next page you would normally come to would be the loans, but they have moved that later on in the call report. So, and then the miscellaneous page would be coming after that, and they've eliminated that page also. In fact, now they're just, then you would go into delinquency, but now this is where they've plugged in now the investment information.
Right.
And this is for available for sale and held to maturity. They've broken it out. So they ask for those on one page, and then the next page is for your trading investments.
Why would there ever be a difference between book value and market value on held to maturity?
They really shouldn't.
Yeah, once those values will just be the same.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, here, you're not breaking it down now by groupings of years and so forth. Like that in the schedules.
Right.
So yeah, this, as you can see, all the account codes are new on this page, although I did notice some of this was on the investment supplement section before. And then, like, this is for your trading investments, and then if you continue, this is where you see your breakdown of the maturities. And time deposits is something new. We didn't ask for that before as part of investments, correct?
I think that's different.
Well, you still have the maturity range.
It's just different wording.
Yeah, it's just wording.
It's just different
Wording, okay.
Yeah, you're still gonna do your certificate, but.
Yeah, they used to say bank deposits, so forth. Now it's just time
No,
deposits.
it's just time.
But now, like, your total for, say, account code 965 for your trading investments needs to match up to the previous page. You'll also see that. So getting some of these checks and balances to all work.
And now you're going through 2 schedules matching to the summary schedule.
Right, exactly.
And we haven't seen any of what the edit checks look like.
No, they haven't, they probably won't post those until way close to when they implement.
So question came in, will you have it set up within CU-based investments for us to feed to the call report for that last page, for example, the book value, et cetera? I think anything's on the drawing board now for what we may do. Again, so we're looking for feedback from you guys. If there's something specifically that you think we could do from an auto population routine or have a desire to move in that direction, I think now may be a good time to throw those comments out there. So Connie, feel free to send that information over to callreport@cuanswers.com, and we're happy to discuss that auto population routine.
Yes. In the past, we've discussed it, but with the way that it's broken out into the maturity ranges, we weren't able to really get AutoPop to work with that, with FASB codes or investment types or that type of thing. But with the new layout, maybe there's a way we can accommodate that going forward. That's what we want to know from you all, depending on how your investments are organized.
There was another question on weighted average life. Also, you add a field to the investor schedule for the weighted average life to feed for the maturities. Right now, we just have maturity date, due date, right? So investments are, especially in the asset-backed investments, are based upon what's called a weighted average life. It depends upon how it's being paid up, but assets behind it are being paid off, so that's what they're asking for. Yeah, I want you to throw that at us too, see if that's a potential.
Yeah.
Another question, they have changed what they consider commercial deposits to include all deposits at the credit union. That clarification in the instructions is good. Different examiners ask for different data based on old instructions. Any comments or feedback there?
I know they intended to clarify a lot of their instructions. I haven't gone through every section. Yeah, but,
And once again, I'm not sure how it's gonna feed back to the examiner process, so
Right.
once they come out with the new changes, so I really really cannot answer that question at this point.
at this point, yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so then if we can move on past investments. Oh, there's a little bit more. This part was part of the supplemental schedule. Couple of new things here. Like I said, this was the most involved of the sections. That's probably the only one they've really beefed up as opposed to toning down. So your input would be very much appreciated on what they're asking for now. And then here is the loans and leases, which they moved around 2 quarters ago. But these account codes are pretty much the same as what they changed them to recently. So this is your breakdown. Again, they're not asking for the interest rate information. And then also at the bottom, they pulled some of this loan information from other sections to put it more where it's appropriate or where they feel it's appropriate. So you can see the outstanding TDR loans. There's some information from the charge-off section. Your loan subject to bankruptcy appears here now.
Interest rate.
But otherwise, this is pretty much what was on the loans and leases page before. Delinquent loans, this was very much streamlined. There used to be a separate page for additional delinquency information, which was additional breakdown of these loans on the main section. So there's just one page for your delinquent loan information now. They've added, like I mentioned at the beginning, the 60 to 179 is now broken out into 2. And they no longer need the individual totals of the amount of delinquent loans. They just have a grand total for the amount. But you need to still provide the dollar amount within all the day ranges. So that, I think, is a good thing. That's very much simplified. And then we'll go to the charge-off again. It's the same thing. It's not as many categories of loans need to be reported.
Have we tapped into, Karen, any of our new details that we have in our loan write-off charge-off database for anything from an auto population routine here, or considered that in any fashion?
We've talked about it, but we haven't done anything. But again, this would be something we could.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback, guys. For those of you guys who are really using and diving into that loan write-off charge-off history dashboard and all that data that's being collected behind the scenes, we'd like to hear some comments from you guys on how that can potentially impact our world for either auto population routines or how we can update our online help to utilize some of that information and reference material for facilitating some of these account codes. I think that's a new resource that we haven't had, so might be something new to add into the element.
Well, and with the onslaught of CECL in 2020 or 2021, if you're not using the charge-offs.
Yeah, you got to move down that path anyways, right?
The sooner the better, because right now that's the only place that's collecting data other than spreadsheets.
Yeah, I would make sure that you read through the documents on it to make sure you fill in all the areas within that screen, so it will help in future uses with the call report.
Sure. Question from Debbie: if they leave the breakdown with the additional category, will you guys plan on changing the delinquency report to account for that new category for the standard reports? I think the answer is yes. We are going to have to look at some reporting changes, dashboard changes that obviously help facilitate some of these changes for the call report. So again, no projects are currently created, like Jim started talking about earlier. But absolutely, these are things that will become projects when things become more real.
And one question too that we have for you all is that report, do you use it for other purposes other than the call report? Because we also talked about creating a completely new report that mirrors the call report and then keeping the existing report intact if you're using it for other purposes. Because we have to keep in mind that some of these reports are used for multiple reasons. So that, I'd be curious to get some input on that. Should we change the existing report or should we create a new one altogether? So that's a good question.
Do you have another chat there?
Nope.
No, okay.
And moving on, now we're into this, was all part of the Schedule A before, your indirect loans. This information is pretty much the same if you offer indirect lending. And then this was your real estate loan section of Schedule A. Why they made new account codes, I'm not really sure, because it looks to be basically the same information, other than it's not asking for the quantity year to date. But this looks to be pretty much the same as what they were asking for in Schedule A.
What I'm seeing on the potential changes for the Aries file, by the way, we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. The first lien, second lien, in that, remember Karen, when that came out, remember business loans, when that was changing the definition of that, and then the first lien, second lien issue came into play. Actually, I'd be curious on how many of you actually went in and had to reconfigure loan categories, update loan purpose codes for that, because when we looked at it, there is no first lien, second lien position or data element on the system. It more would be related to something that they configured, and we were wondering, are they going crazy right now?
Right.
As they redefined their member business loans for sure, because that was gigantic. And then what they did for the first lien, second lien, because I see that again on the, as it relates to the Aries file as well.
Another question that came in, will CU Answers be expanding anything relative to off-trial balance, OTB mortgage tracking? Today I have to complete this portion manually. I think we've discussed it internally, and I think our overall business strategy has always been that OTBs are great for members and for facilitating payments and everything along those lines. I don't think we've had enough faith or trust in that data for actual call report facilitation. What do you guys think about that?
No, I think every time that and Connie, that's a great question. Every time that comment comes up, and it kind of gravitates towards data exchange. And then what we found is a dramatic inconsistency. Well, we'll get that file for the end of month for Connie or credit union, but it actually represents totals as of the end of the 27th, the end of day 27. So we didn't remember that exercise we went through.
There's always variance.
So I don't know, Connie, if that would become a reality or not.
I think that's probably the hardest one to handle. So we've kind of always taken a step back and said, hey, your vendor or your third party is going to be where you want to get those totals. Another question, will CU Base move the negative share to the unsecured loans when quarter ends for the call report?
We do this manually now. We just make a journal entry and then we reverse it on the first of the month. But I don't know if we would have an option. I mean, we did that for the delinquency, the 90-day delinquency. I don't know if we could create an option for that process or not.
Something to consider, and we can talk about internally. If we wanted to create some sort of process like we do with our 90-day delinquency loans or something along those lines, that's something that we could potentially discuss internally. So thanks for that feedback.
How hard is it to get that number? It's not right. It's just a contingent liability dashboard that you're looking at to get the negative amount.
No, we use the negative balance report when it says created at the beginning. Yeah.
Cool. So thanks for the feedback, guys. This is exactly what we're looking for, by the way. So we're excited about the comments and hope that you guys will continue as we move forward.
And I'm not sure how far everyone's delved into this, but if you do come up with more comments after the fact, please, by all means, you can comment via the kitchen page. You can email callreport@cuanswers.com. just sooner rather than later. So if we want the NCUA to get contacted, we can do that. But moving on, we've got the member business loans section. And then the next section is the commercial loans, which I think is the only page that remained completely the same, but they had just changed it 2 quarters ago. So,
Leave it alone.
yeah. And then the participation loans, this is simplified somewhat, not as many categories are being requested. And then your total PCLs outstanding. Again, that was on that previous loans and leases page, so those will have to edit back to each other. They'll be input in one place and populated to the other. When the NCUA posts changes like this, they're not always really clear what are subtotals and what aren't. So that we'll have to just kind of review once we get further along and get some testing done and see where things are.
Aaron, Aaron is asking, do we know when they're going to make a final decision? Did they say in that doc?
No, they didn't say anything. It just said it's proposed for March 2019, but they're really looking for feedback. So now's the time to say, we need more time.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. They do have if you go back to the main modernization page, they kind of have you go there, project phases, but they didn't put any dates or anything. So right now it's in the outreach, and then they'll be doing their decision and implement. So.
Wish we knew. I think
I
is the
know,
answer.
right. NCUA, as everyone knows, can be unpredictable, so we can't answer that. So if we move on, well, this is your liquidity commitments. This is simplified, but a lot of this is the same also. And then this is derivative transactions, which was 5 pages, is now down to a half page. Finally.
Well, only credit unions under, what was it, Charlie? How many billions did you have to be to play in derivatives?
I believe it was like 2.5.
2.5, yeah. It's not about credit unions.
This section is the same. This is your bank secrecy information. And then the QSO information is the same. And the remainder is, this is the page that the NCUA calculates your net worth. And then we can kind of just page down through, but the remainder of the pages, the majority of it, it looks like the NCUA is going to auto-populate based on your previous call report data. But some of it's also based on this risk-based pricing rule and whether it gets adapted or.
Well, I know I think RBC does go into play next year, so they're probably just understanding that
Right.
it's going to be there, so this might.
They're preparing for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there may be some manual input that's looking like, because how they indicate auto-populated on some of them, but not others. So we'll just kind of have to see how this section evolves and.
Yeah, that's all RBC.
Yep.
And if quarter-end assets exceed 100K, so what it says, it won't be required otherwise.
Yeah. A lot of risk-based capital.
Mm-hmm. And then this is the last page to be completed by low-income designated credit unions only. So I don't think that was anything that was out there before.
No.
You've been getting a lot of requests for data for low income.
No. Should I be?
I have gotten a few requests. fact that sometimes they believe the areas file has enough information.
Well, Danny, that's also why it would be important, if they are designated, is that to let you know if you're doing their call reports.
Mhm.
That's
Their low income,
Mhm.
and then how they're deriving.
right, how they're getting their numbers for down here.
Yeah, how do I know about that one?
Mhm.
So we can pretty much open up now for any open discussion, comments, anything, anyone has questions about? You know, we're interpreting everything along the way and digesting as same as you are, and we just want to work together with you to help you with this quarterly task.
I think too, it'd be important to, once again, go back out there onto the NCUA website, download the report, and start going through it yourself, and then maybe with some comments coming in. It is a short deadline for the comments at this
All
point.
right.
Great.
Well, we're on it, and your input's going to be important moving forward with this. Again, you know, the more eyes we have on this, the better it is for any. I don't know how many total account codes are there, Karen? Hundreds.
Yeah, it used to be over,
Yeah, and they reduced it by 25%, I think they said, even actually, but they had increased it by 40% last year. Now they reduced it by 25, so we're up 15.
Hard to say because they replaced
That's fuzzy now.
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
Keep your eye on the kitchen page.
Callreport@cuanswers.com is the email address you want to send everything to. So if you have any questions, concerns, or comments that you'd like us to help you facilitate and write, please send them to that email address. Great. Thanks a lot for your time, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.